Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Merkel. I'm president of Junior Achievement of Mahoning Valley. We welcome you to JA Inspire Virtual. And today with us we have Jim Ritter, who is the Director of Enrollment Marketing, Student Services and Advising at Kent State Trumbull University. So at this time, I would like to turn over the presentation to Jim.
Good morning. Hope you all are doing well. Thanks for participating so early in the morning. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to just jump right into it. This is the College 101 presentation. And first thing I want to talk about are the different types of higher education institutions. There are proprietary schools, community colleges, universities. So let's jump into proprietary schools. This is a picture of ITT. Some of you may remember that. ETI is another proprietary school. That means they're owned by someone. There's their web address. Community college. Example would be Eastern Gateway Community College, locally. Colleges. Here's where it gets a little confusing. College of Worcester, Antioch College, Hiram College. Notice college is in their name. And then universities. Now there's private, such as Duke, Wilberforce, Stanford, Notre Dame. Those are all private universities. And then there's public universities, Kent State, Penn State, University of Pittsburgh. Obviously, if state is in its name, it's a public university. Now, that's important because when it comes to type of admission, there's two types. There's open admission and selective admission. Open admission would be like Kent State Trumbull, for example. As long as you have a high school diploma, GED, you are accepted. Selective admission means that the university is going to select students based on certain criteria that they set up. Usually it's ACT or SAT score. Sometimes it gets as involved as an interview, an essay, high school GPA, courses you've taken, also activities you've been a part of in high school. All community colleges and some universities are open admission. All private colleges and most public universities, excuse me, have selective admission. Now, there's different types of degrees. There's an associate degree, commonly called a 2-year degree. Can be finished in 2 years, usually takes a little bit longer. Bachelor's degree, commonly called a 4-year degree. Takes about 4 years, but some students have been taking longer. Master's professional degree, after you get your bachelor's degree, you can go on for a master's degree, usually 1 year of full-time study. And then there's professional degrees, such as a doctor or a lawyer. Those are normally 3 years at least after the bachelor's degree. And for medical school, that would be considered a doctorate. That's normally 3 years of full-time study after the master's degree. So you can see a doctorate degree takes a lot longer. So how do you consider what type of school to go to? There's over 3,000 colleges and universities across the United States. Well, I recommend students do one thing and one thing only, and that is first decide your top 3 majors. Okay, so maybe it's nursing, physical therapy, architecture. Then what you want to do is you want to pick 3 schools that have those programs. And then you want to break it down even more and say, okay, what's my first choice of my first school? What's my dream school? Maybe that's the Harvard and the Princetons and the Yales. But again, they've got your top 3 majors. Now, the reason that's so important is because the average student changes their major at least twice over the course of a bachelor's degree. So more than likely, you're going to change your major. So if you pick a school that's got those three majors and you don't want nursing, let's say you want to go into physical therapy, it's a matter of just filling out a form to change your major. But if that school you choose doesn't have physical therapy, then you've got 2 choices and neither one is good. One of the choices is go to your next major because that school has it. The other choice is to start looking all over for more colleges that have that other major. So again, try to pick schools that have those top 3 majors. What's my dream school? What's my second choice school? Middle ground school. So maybe that's the Ohio States of the world. And third choice, my safety net. Maybe those are the community colleges, the open admission, open enrollment universities and colleges where you know you can get in. First choice, you may be able to afford it, may be able to get in. Second choice, middle ground, I probably can get in, I probably can afford it. Third choice, safety net, I know I can get in. They have open admission, I know I can afford it. Then you want to schedule a campus tour. Now there's two types of campus tours, individual campus tour, or also a group tour. A typical tour will involve the rec center, the dorm, the cafe, athletic facilities, classrooms. We'll talk about admission, they'll talk about financial aid. Here are the questions you want to ask. Okay, you've showed me one dorm, but what dorm am I going to be in? That may or may not be the same dorm. Can I see that dorm? Here's a picture of a typical dorm room, as you can see, very small. This happens to be a double. In the case that you're going to have a double dorm room, which is obviously less expensive than a single, can I choose my roommate? And if I can, how do I do that? One of the biggest reasons students leave a residential campus is because they can't get along with their roommate. Here's another good question. What's the size of a typical freshman class? So every college is going to tell you that their faculty to student ratio is about 20-1. That's about average. But what you want to know is when I get in that freshman general psychology course, how many students are going to be in that? Because it's probably not going to be just 20. It's going to be maybe with a large university, it could be as many as 500 or even 1,000. So you want to find out the size of the typical freshman class. Other questions you want to ask, what's the process to see my advisor? An advisor is the person that helps you pick your major, pick out your courses. And if you're having problems during the semester, the first person you're going to go see is your advisor. So you want to ask that question, what's the process to do that? Is there a waiting list to see my advisor? I know some universities, students have to wait 2 and 3 weeks to see an advisor. Here at Kent State Trumbull, you can see an advisor every day if you need to. You can come in at any time of any day and see an advisor. Where are the quiet study areas where I'm going to study? When you're taking that tour, start thinking about, okay, if I go here, are there a lot of places, a lot of nooks and crannies that I can go to study? Or am I going to have to go back to my dorm room and then have to fight with my dorm room member for study time? Are there counselors on campus? Many students today will go through some type of emotional issue, mental issue, and they're going to want to see a campus counselor. Is there a campus counselor? How many are there? If you're going to a university with 40,000 students, there's one campus counselor, you know it's going to take a while to see that person. What's the process to see a counselor? Okay, study time. The one thing that I would like for you to really get out of this presentation, if you get nothing else, is regardless of what degree, where you go, you're going to have to study at least 2 hours outside of class for every hour in class. Now, most students take about 15 credit hours, which is about 5 classes, because most classes are 3 credit hours each. So that means you're in class about 15 hours a week. So you need to study at least 30 hours for that 15 hours. 30 hours a week studying, 15 hours a week in class. That's 45 hours a week just between going to class and studying. The reason I bring that up is because if you think, well, the only way I can go to college is if I work a lot of hours, like 30 or 35 hours, you're not going to be able to really take those 15 credit hours. You're going to have to reduce that somewhat. So keep that in mind. What other things you plan to do? If you plan on playing sports and working and trying to do a full schedule, that's going to be, your plate's going to be pretty full. So again, most students take 4 or 5 classes because of the amount of time needed to study. It's very important to spend your high school years learning how to study effectively. Here's some quick study tips I'll go over because I think they're important as well. When you're studying in college, you want to study closer to the lecture rather than the exam. What I mean by that is after you get done with your class, go somewhere, take 5 or 10 minutes, review the material. Don't just read the material. A lot of students coming out of high school don't really know how to learn, they know how to memorize. But that's not what you're going to do in college. You're going to really try to learn the material. Pause and reflect before moving on. When you're studying the material, go through each item and really try to figure out if you know that little piece of information before you move on to the next. One of the biggest advantages you have of going to college today is you can learn the material in a number of different ways. Go to class, come home, study, pull up a YouTube video. Let's say you're in a math class and you can't understand integrals. Pull up a YouTube video on integrals and learn it that way. Study more than one subject each day. One of the biggest mistakes students make in college is they study just psychology one day, and then they study just English another day. And they spend 4 hours on psychology and 4 hours on English. That's not a good way to study. You want to kind of break it up and learn a little bit about each subject every day. Take steps not to forget. The nice thing you have in college is you're allowed to videotape or audio tape the lecture. You just have to ask the instructor if you can do it. And then you could play that back and learn it. Again, remember, you're going to retain 80% of the information you've learned if you review it within 24 hours. Keep that in mind. There's a couple different systems I have here. I won't go into in detail. The Leitner system, where you're going to put the name of a topic on an index card, and then you're going to have a set of index cards and go through each topic. Fenneman system, SQ3R, which is survey, question, read, recite, review. One of the most important things, make and keep a study schedule. So I mentioned that 45 hours a week between going to class and studying. Once you get through your first week, sit down and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do on Monday. My psychology class is Monday, Wednesday, 8 o'clock to 9:15. My next class isn't until 11 o'clock. So then I'm going to put a block of time in there from 9:30 to 10:45 to study. Actually write out a study schedule. You're more likely to keep that schedule than if you just come home after class and say, okay, what do I want to read up on now and study? So what's it cost to go to college? These are some older figures, but they're pretty current. Tuition at some of the Ohio's colleges and universities. A community college is going to be less expensive. Eastern Gateway is about $3,400 or $4,000 a year. Kent State Trumbull, a regional campus of Kent State University, $6,500 a year. That's actually the current tuition. Ohio State University, large residential university, about $10,000 a year. Our Kent campus actually is about $10,000 a year as well. Ohio Northern, a private university, $28,000 a year. Kenyon College always has the reputation of having the most expensive tuition in Ohio, and they're about $50,000 a year. Other costs, books, transportation, room and board, food and lodging, supplies. So how do you pay for college? And there's a session later today on financial aid. I just want to touch on some things in case you aren't able to attend that session. Obviously, your own money. Financial aid means loans, grants, and scholarships. Loans, obviously, is money you borrow, but you have to pay back. Grants, free money based on your financial need. You don't pay them back. Scholarships, again, free money based on your academic or athletic abilities. Again, the one thing you definitely want to keep in mind when it comes to financial aid is fill out the FAFSA. And it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And I'm going to talk about that word free in a minute. The nice thing about the FAFSA is you can list up to 10 colleges. So any college you're even thinking about, you want to list on your FAFSA because they'll send the results to that college. The other thing to keep in mind, there's going to be a question on the FAFSA. Do you believe you qualify for federal work study? Check yes. Because if you do qualify for federal work study, the nice thing is, and we do this at our campus, when we go to hire a student employee, we look to see who's eligible for federal work study. That means the government's paying the salary of the student employee. So we look for students who are federal work study eligible first because we don't have to pay as much of the salary. So check off yes. If you're not eligible, no harm, no foul. Again, with FAFSA, make sure you go to FAFSA.gov. Don't go to FAFSA.com. That's a proprietary website. They try to charge you $80 to basically send you a FAFSA, which you can get for free on FAFSA.gov. So remember, the first word in the FAFSA is free application. So you don't ever pay for financial aid assistance. I actually have a blog about how to succeed in college. You can go to that if you'd like. And the last thing I want to leave you with is a statement by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. The biggest thing I tell students is you've got to believe in your mind that you're going to be a college graduate in 2 years or 4 years. If you don't believe that, all the study tips and all the other things are not going to help you. Believe that you can graduate from college, and you will. And I think I've got like 1 minute left before I've filled out my 15 minutes.
You did an excellent job. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jim. So we have several students on. I just want to use this time for questions and answers. I know there are a few raising their hands. If you can type in on the Q&A your questions, I will read them to Jim. So while we're waiting for them to type in their questions that they have, Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
So based on your job, your career, what daily tasks do you perform at the university?
A lot of it is email. Students email in questions. Even before they're students, they'll say, hey, I applied. What am I missing on my application? I started something this year, which is kind of fun. Once students get admitted, I have a yard sign that says, "The Future Flash lives here." And I actually deliver to their house their acceptance letter and a Future Flash sign and a few other items to congratulate them on being accepted. So I spend some of my time just out on the road, dropping off those signs and visiting students. Meetings, no matter what business you go into, you're going to have a lot of meetings, unfortunately. Most of it, though, is all dealing with helping students to graduate. That's what we do.
Okay, perfect. So Matthew has a question. Does Kent State have a website where it lists all of the available majors you offer?
Yes, and it's very easy. It's www.kent.edu/majors, MAJORS, and that's it. And there are I will warn you, there are over 300 majors that Kent State offers. So it's going to be a very long list. The nice thing is there's a little search box in there. You can just type in anything related to that major you're thinking about, and it'll come up. So if you put in architectural studies, architecture is going to come up.
Okay, perfect. And I suggest that you visit the Kent State Trumbull exhibitor booth on the JA Inspire virtual platform. This will provide additional information of the degrees that Kent offers. Okay, so we have Brian who asks about the booth location at Kent Trumbull. Yes, they offer major and minors and it is available there. So they are listed at the booth. Sam wants to know, do you think high school does a good job preparing students for college?
You know, it's funny you asked that because I was just thinking that the other day. I was thinking back into high school about the students who really succeeded. And what I found in just looking back, the ones who took high school seriously and took advantage of all the different opportunities are the ones that tend to do better in college. I mean, I think back to students that I went to school with that are now surgeons and medical doctors. And I was just reading up on a student yesterday who is world famous. He is, I went to high school with him. He went to Kent. He's a year older than me. He is a multimillionaire and he's been on TED Talks. And he had this record of, he sold the most items on Home Shopping Network and QVC in a 24-hour period. Those students took advantage of everything. They took the harder classes. They took the calculus. They took the physics courses. The ones that just kind of skated by, some are successful, but at the same time, it was harder for them in college. So yes, high school does a good job if you take advantage of all the opportunities available to you in high school. If you're just trying to just get through high school as fast as you can and take the easy route, you're going to struggle a little bit in college.
Okay. We have a little bit more time left if there's any more questions from students. Again, you're going to have to type those in. So I know you covered this in your PowerPoint presentation, but the question is, how long is a college day?
Oh, great question. So college is not like high school. High school, you start at 7:30, you're done at 2:30. College, in high school, you spend a lot of time in class and a little bit of time outside of class studying. College is just the opposite. Spend a little bit of time in class, and again, as I mentioned before, you're expected to spend a lot of time outside of class studying. So a typical schedule might be Monday, Wednesday, 8 o'clock to 9:15 general psych, 11 o'clock to 12:15 English, and that's it for Monday, Wednesday. Tuesday, Thursday, you might have your calculus class from 10 o'clock to 11:15, and then a break, and then 2 o'clock to 3:15, you might have your geology class, and then maybe an online class in between there. So you're only going to be taking a couple classes each day. Like high school, in high school, they try to get through the whole book during the year. College, they're going to do the same thing, only it's going to be a semester. Most schools now are on semesters. In fact, every university in Ohio is on semesters. That's 15 weeks. So the fall semester starts at the end of August and goes through about the middle of December. So in that time, when you get into general psychology, they're going to try to cover the whole book in that 15 weeks. That's why you have to really spend a lot of time outside of class studying, because they're going to go from one topic to the next. They're not going to say, okay, does everyone get this before I move on to the next topic? So you're going to do that for the fall, and then you're going to have a break of about a month, and then mid-January through beginning of May is going to be the spring semester, at which point you take a separate set of courses. So if you had English 1 in the fall, you're going to now take English 2 in the spring, and then you'll be done with your English after that. That's a general psychology course you took in the fall. That's done after fall semester. Then you move on to the spring with another set of courses. So again, that 15 credit hours, about 5 classes, that means you're in class about 15 hours a week, but it's the time outside of class that you have to study that is going to really determine how well you're going to do. And similar to the question that was asked before, I asked someone one time, what's college like? And they said, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you just kind of skate through with C's and D's and get through college, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time getting a job afterwards. But if you get involved in student organizations, if you become, let's say, the president of the student organization you're involved in, if you really go to class, take notes, do well in class, and really do a lot in college, you're going to be better off than someone who just kind of skated through, and you're going to be more prepared.
Very good. Okay, we have probably 3 minutes left before this ends. So the next question is, what happens if a student does not want to go to college after high school? So
Okay.
what are the other options that they can do?
Sure. So one option is obviously to go to the military. Another option is to just go to work. Another option is, I guess, to do nothing. What I would recommend, though, I've seen a lot of students who, right out of high school, they didn't want to go to college. And so they decided not to do that. And then about 10 years later, they say, you know what, maybe I need to go to college and get a better job. And so they come back as what we call a non-traditional student, at which time they have, maybe a full-time job, maybe they've got a family, and it's hard to go to school. So what I would recommend is, if you think I don't want to go to college, maybe, take some time off, maybe take 1 class or even 2 classes. To get a student loan, you need at least 6 credit hours. So that's 2 classes. And maybe take just 2 classes, get a full-time job, and then go to school in the evening and just take a couple classes and just see how you like it. And you never know, and this is when I mentioned students changing their major a couple times over the course of a bachelor's degree, you never know when you're going to get into a class and it's just going to click and it's going to ignite that spark and you're really going to enjoy it. I changed my major a couple times. I was a computer science major and then switched over to business. And I was in my computer science classes and just was bored out of my mind and thought, is college really for me? I don't know that this is going to work. I can't see myself doing this for 4 years, let alone for the rest of my life. When I switched over to business, I enjoyed every class. I enjoyed studying. It just was really interesting to me. It just clicked. So you might say, I don't want to go to college, but if you just take a couple classes, you never know, that might spark some interest in you. And even if it takes you 10 years to graduate by taking a couple classes every semester, 10 years is going to come and go, and you either be with a degree or not with a degree after that.
Okay, and we have one more question we can get in before we have to end this session. I do want to remind the students that are on this live webinar that if you go to Kent State Trumbull, there is a chat button in the exhibitor booth, and there will be representatives that will be able to answer those questions. But if you can sum up in 30 seconds or less, how is Kent working around COVID, the pandemic, in regards to online?
Great question. And Kent State did a phenomenal job with COVID. We jumped out on it early. And what we did was the president told faculty, basically, if you're teaching remote, you can make that whatever you want. That could be, you could teach it online. You could teach it so that the classes meet maybe once a week. The rest is done online. However you best feel you can teach classes remotely, that's how that's how you can teach. And so that's what the instructors did. They weren't forced to teach a certain way. So some are teaching class as they would normally and telling students, my daughter has a class up at Kent campus. The instructor says, we're going to meet every day from 11 to 11:50 if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but you can come in. She goes in every day. And then after Thanksgiving, everything's remote, which is kind of like online, basically. When I say kind of, meaning that just like we're doing here, instructors will hold classes that way. So Kent jumped out on it early and really took it seriously and really did a good job, I think, with it. And, even with the staff, we're allowed to come into campus if we need to. If we don't want to, we don't have to. And we can work remotely from home.
Great. I appreciate your time today, Jim. And this is going to conclude our College 101 session with Mr. Ritter. And as I mentioned before, you can go to the Kent State Trumbull exhibitor booth where there'll be representatives that will answer your additional questions. Thanks,
Can I
Jim.
add one more thing?
Sure, real quick.
I forgot to mention, another option for you if you don't want to go to college are the trades, the skilled trades. So give them some thought as well.
Good advice. And we have some presenters on skilled trades coming up in our next session.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.